Hey folks, nowadays I cannot open a social media app without getting bombarded by those false 10x improvement gains for when you're using AI coding assistants. And it's getting to me because the gains are there, but they are nowhere near 10x, especially during coding. When I work on large code bases, it's like more like on a good day, 10% to 30% gain. But I do have some areas where those 10x gains are real. One of them is rapidly prototyping stuff, like from idea to a hack together web app to showcase something or to explore alternatives. Sure, the 10x gain is there. But during coding, not so much. There are, however, other areas in my professional life where the 10x gains are real. And today I want to showcase some of those with you. Now, in one of my previous videos, I mentioned that these LLM agents are kind of a new programmable machine where you like program in English and you have to deal with all kinds of quirks like the non-determinism, the so-so instruction following, stuff like that. But once you like get used to those quirks, you can actually get them to do useful stuff. And today I want to show you some of those workflows that I implement in my daily work. And I want to focus on one specific area, which is my the place where I do all my thinking and all my writing, which is my Obsidian vault. So let's first take a quick look at what that exactly is and how I work with it. So what is this smart note-taking system I'm talking about? Well, it's based on the Zettelkasten system, and if you want to Google it a bit, you can Google for smart notes or Zettelkasten. This is a book by Sönke Ahrens. It's a bit dry, a bit dense, but it covers the essential. But basically, it's my second brain. It's like an offline copy of my brain. It contains a lot of notes. You can treat it a bit like Wikipedia, with the big difference that I wrote each and every page on in that Wikipedia. And it's also hyperlinked, so notes reference other notes, and you can traverse the graph like that. And I found it to be a really powerful way to strengthen my thinking and my writing and my creative process. And as a tool or for tools, I use Obsidian, which is something a lot of people use, but I love it. And it's especially useful for developers because it is Markdown based. So if you know Markdown syntax, you'll know your way around Obsidian. It's highly extensible. It has an open plugin market where you can find plugins for whatever. If you like to draw an Excalidraw, it has a plugin, stuff like that. And it's also very friendly to write your own plugins. We'll go over a couple I wrote myself later in this video, but it's like a developer's dream. So let's quickly go over Obsidian so you have an idea what this means in practice. This is my vault, my Obsidian vault, and these are all notes I wrote. And let's click open some notes. So you can just use Markdown syntax to add images, to create lists, write text, whatever. And the powerful part is right here. So this is one of my notes. And you can link through, just like on Wikipedia, to different related notes. And then you can click on them and navigate them quickly. So it's a very cool way to reference notes and like start down the search of linked notes. And there's all kinds of cool things like this graph view that highlights all the notes in the system, and you can see like things you think and write a lot about and things that are like in isolation that you maybe should explore further. So this Obsidian tool helps with this whole smart note-taking system approach. That's enough details. Now let's dive in some use cases. Now, before we get started, there's one super important thing I want to highlight, and that is that when you let an LLM agent into your vault, into your smart note system, do not let it think for you. This second brain thing is like made to augment your brain, but if you just let an LLM word vomit all over it without you having any input, you'll lose all value of this system. So handle with care. I use LLMs heavily in my note-taking system, but I do not let them create new content. All right, so the first use case where I heavily use LLM agents in my writing, thinking, smart note system is actually in searching, because one of the things I found pretty frustrating in Obsidian is the limited search functionality. If you take a look here, at the search, it gives you like search on a file name, on a tag, on keywords, stuff like that. But it's all like text-based, heavy-based stuff. So if I want to look at notes that I wrote about LLMs, it's pretty like just looking for the text LLMs, and it's not a smart search or a semantic search. So that was the first thing that I had in my brain, like, wait a second, all these neural net things are pretty good at semantic search stuff. So that's the first project I tackled. And let's take a look at what exactly I did. This is the architecture of my semantic search. And basically, I have my Obsidian vault, which is a folder with lots of markdown files, and the Obsidian application. What I did is I vibe coded a plugin. It's a very open system and it's all TypeScript, so it's pretty easy to get started. I vibe coded a plugin that would look at the file I have open and do like a semantic search. So go through my Obsidian vault and look for relevant other nodes that are relevant to this topic, but not only on keywords, but like on the meaning of the file. So that's what semantic search means. And in the background, this plugin just calls claude-code, my CLI application, with like some kind of system prompt that says you have to do a semantic search. And that then returns JSON, and the plugin renders everything. We'll show that in a minute, but so it's a plugin that calls Claude, my AI coding agent, which like internally talks to an LLM in the cloud, but that's the basic architecture. Now, what does this agent do? It has a vector database in the background. So I set up a vector database. I used ChromaDB, but the technology is not very important, but that's one that was really easy to set up if you're looking for vector databases and embedding-based model searches. So I installed ChromaDB and I installed an MCP server in my Claude that allows the agent to talk to this vector database. Now, a vector database and embedding models are basically a system where, given a document, like one of my Obsidian nodes just converts that document into a number, a sequence of numbers, actually, a vector, that's like called an embedding. It's a vector representing the meaning of the document. It's quite similar actually to the internal mechanisms of a large language model. They also have like embeddings somewhere in there. But so yeah, ChromaDB converts a document to an embedding and then stores that in a persistent storage, a vector database, which is really good at doing vector-based comparisons and some searches. And the powerful thing that this setup enables is similarity search. So I can, once I have filled this ChromaDB with all my documents, I vibe coded some Python for that. So it fills the Chroma database with all my embeddings for all my documents. And then I just use the similarity search in the MCP server, in the Chroma endpoint, that just like takes a text query string or an entire node or whatever, and that can do a similarity search on all my existing nodes, and then return it to the agent, which returns it to the plugin, and which can show like all the relevant nodes for a search query. So that was a pretty cool project. I think it took me 2 hours to set up everything and maybe an hour to tweak the system prompt that I have to send to claude-code. So this was half a day's work, and now I have semantic search in Obsidian. So let's do a quick demo. And let's maybe use today's script. So I wrote a quick script, but it has like no links to nothing whatsoever. So let's now start my plugin, which is this brain augmented brain thing, the semantic context fetcher. And let's just highlight my current document and let's start the search. This takes a couple of seconds. Okay, and it's done. So let's take a look at the results. It just renders like a list of all kinds of nodes that are relevant. And if you watch this entire video, all these nodes will be very relevant. Semantic search is what we're talking about here. There's a node. You can even click it and open the node. So yeah, that was a really cool and useful vibe coding experiment, setting up this semantic search in Obsidian. And it has already boosted my like exploring my smart note system for free, because I don't pay anything, not a paid plugin, nothing. Okay, there's another really cool use case where I use LLM agents inside my vault, and that is when I am learning, actually, not when I'm creating new nodes. So whenever I do a consulting gig and I have to talk about organization design or like team structure or something, I've done work on that before. I read a lot about it, I wrote a lot about it, and it's somewhere in my vault. Now, before I had these agents in my workflow, I would just open up a node, start reading it, start navigating it, and start like refreshing my memory. But that's a very boring way to freshen up your memory. What I found, what was really cool, is to like generate interactive quizzes on the fly based on a topic, and that's what these LLM agents also allow me to do. Now, the theory behind it is from this book. It's called Make It Stick by Peter C. Brown and others. But like the theory is the best way to learn is to do spaced and interleaved retrieval practice, which is a very fancy term of just mixing up the topics and having like little cards with questions and answers, and like the ones you know well go to the back of the stack, the ones you struggle with stay at the front. And I built like a quizmaster basically, using my AI agent, my claude-code, and yeah, I have it generate quizzes for me on the fly. So yeah, let's take a quick look. So yeah, let's see what this looks like. Let me run a generate quiz command. It's a slash command. And we'll take a look at the prompt in a second. And we want the topic to be team topologies. Topologies, that's a difficult word. And let's generate 3 questions. And now it's going to do a semantic search, so also using Chroma to look for nodes related to team topology, and then create a quiz based on it. And in the meantime, let's dive into the system prompt. So here's the system prompt, which basically says, you're a quizmaster, you're gonna make a quiz, you need to use ChromaDB to actually look for relevant documents, and then come up with some questions, and then run as an interactive quizmaster. And it even scores and gives like further study tips, but yeah, that's a bit too much of detail. So let's do one of these quizzes. And let's run it interactively. I also have like a vibe-coded quiz app. That's a bit easier on the tokens than this interactive mode. But yeah, the sky is the limit if you start doing this. So yeah, here's the quiz. We have 3 questions on team topologies, and they're all based on my vault. So let's quickly run through it. C, nope, D, no, but A and B both could actually work. What I like about this interactive mode is if I like am stuck and I don't know, yeah, I know what this question is about, but let's now say, please give a hint. So I did not program anything about a hint, but seeing that this is an LLM, it can just like interpret my command and start freewheeling. Security nightmare again. But as you can see, it like gives some hints and stuff. So yeah, this runs a quiz and gives you a score, stuff like that. But it's a really fun way to interact with your knowledge base, with your Obsidian vault. All right, another cool example I want to show you is how I deal with all the work I did before I had my smart node system. So I've been creating content and especially making courses and workshops for I think 10 plus years now. And before I had my smart nodes, the only artifact I had was PowerPoint's slide decks. So that's not very good to search through. That's not very good to write blog posts for YouTube content. So I needed to figure out a way to get from bunch of slide decks, huge slide decks, like super dry educational stuff, to having text that I could use for YouTube scripts, for blog posts, stuff like that. And that sounds like something LLMs might be good at, right? So I started playing around with it, and I came up with a pretty cool system. So let's go over that. Most modern LLMs are multimodal, which means that they work just as fine with text as they do with audio and images. And claude-code, the tool I use the most, works perfectly fine with images. So what I did is I pre-processed my slide decks, my PowerPoints, into folders where like every slide gets an export in an image, a PNG file. So I have a huge folder with 200, 300 images. And then I have my LLM agent like batch those, interpret each and every slide, and like interpret the text on there, interpret the meaning on there, and write like a short summary in a markdown file in my vault somewhere. And then I have like one huge markdown file, OneNote, containing like the transcript of these slide decks. And while not perfect, they are a very big time saver. Like it's like 300 slide deck condensed into a single markdown file, and I just have to scroll over both once to do a cross check, which is like 20 minutes work instead of 4 hours of work. So this is one of those places where I really get 10x improvements during my non-coding activities. So yeah, let's do a quick demo. I did a course on software design a couple of years ago, and this is the full 200 slide deck. I will not bore you with that, but I have like a 3-slide alternative, lightweight demo, and it contains some references to a great talk by Jessica Kerr. But as you can see, this slide is just an image with the speaker, Jessica Kerr, and like some handwriting on a whiteboard. Which is like design until you understand the problem, write code until you realize you don't, and then notes to the original software configuration. So it's all very visual. And then I have some other slides. Maybe let's go over them to get the full picture. There's another slide about Kent Beck's Tidy First, a very good book if you haven't read it. Also a good person to follow if you like working with LLM coding agents. But yeah, there's this like a mathematical formula and some references to books and Substack posts, stuff like that. And then there's another slide, which is like a text dump on what domain-driven design is, stuff like that. So yeah, so that's the slide deck. This is a very small version, but this scales to 200, 300. And now let's reverse engineer those slides using claude-code. So let's run Claude. Always run and dangerously skip permissions if you know what you're doing. And if you don't, please don't touch this. So I have my reverse engineer slide deck, and I want it to reverse engineer what folder name was it? Slides demo. And I want it into reverse engineered markdown. And now it's gonna take a look at all those images and create a markdown file that resembles the contents of that slide deck. I wrote a system prompt so that it batches in chunks of 10. So when I hit my Claude limit, I don't lose all progress. But as you can see, it's like very autonomous. It just OCRs every image and writes like a summary and then dumps everything in a markdown file. That's like a small note I want to make. This is the only place where I let an LLM write stuff into my vault, but I made like 200% sure that it writes only text that's found in the slides and that it like writes in my style. So I had Claude analyze my entire vault for like writing patterns, tone of voice, stuff like that, and I had it come up with a system prompt like with the summary of my writing style. And that I also pipe in when I have it write stuff. So it writes in my tone of voice. So it finished up on the markdown file. So now let's take a look at what came out of it. There should be a reversed engineered node. Here we go. So it has some metadata, but it also has like a chapter per, or yeah, a section per slide. And if you can see, this is like the first slide about with Jessica Kerr's quote, or the original software engineering conference quote. Yeah, and as you can see, it parsed that written text just fine. It also links to some notes that I have or not yet have, but it's trying to link topics. And here you go, that's the second slide with the tidy first reference with the Constantine's equivalence thing. It parsed the formula just fine, even put it in a code block, cool. And then it explains a bit, tries to explain a bit. This is something I would very much proofread before I would push this to production. And it parsed the third slide just fine, dense wall of text with some highlights, and it took like the highlights into account. So yeah, that's how I use LLM agents to give a first draft of my courseware, which is where my real 10x improvements have been in the non-coding area. Now, if any of these examples sounds cool and you want to try them yourself, I provide full links to the code and to the prompts in the description below, so take a look down there. So those were some examples where I introduced an LLM into my smart node system. And again, I do not let it do any thinking for me, but it has 10x'd some of the tedious, boring work, or it allowed me to explore my vault in ways that were not possible before, or at least not for free. So yeah, do you use LLMs outside of coding? Have you found 10x improvements somewhere else? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.